Chief Executive John Lee outlines new priorities for district councils. Lok Ma Chau Emergency Hospital will be opened for MRI scans tomorrow. Joe Biden announces he is running for the U.S. presidency again. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The government is set to complete its district administration review soon. Chief Executive John Lee stressed that elections will still be held for district councillors, but measures will be taken to prevent district councils from becoming platforms for non-patriots. He added that the councils must place national security as their priority. Timothy Lee tells us more.
With elections coming up later this year for Hong Kong's district councils, Chief Executive John Lee gave an update on the government's review of the district council's role prior to the Executive Council meeting this morning. The CE said some district councillors have participated in the 2019 anti-government riots and destroyed order in the city. He said the system will be corrected.
In regard to the methods of becoming a district council member, I have mentioned there will be multi-ways of entry. That is why I have mentioned that amongst this possible entry routes, there will be elements of election. As regards to the outrageous behaviors of many district councils, it is not just unsatisfactory, it is blatantly unacceptable because they are behaving in such a way which advocated Hong Kong's independence, and a lot of their behavior actually set very bad example for Hong Kong. We are not going to allow this to repeat. I will not allow district councils to be the platform to promote Hong Kong independence.
Currently, there are 452 directly elected seats for district councils and 27 seats for rural committees. During the 2019 riots, out of the city's 18 districts, 17 councils were led by district councillors from the pro-democracy camp. The government later required such councillors to swear an oath of allegiance to the government, leading to a wave of resignations and disqualifications. The move led to the reduction of district councillors to 146. That's about a third of the original number. The chief executive stressed that district councils are worth keeping, as they play a major role in consultation and the administration of the city's districts. He added that future elections must adhere to the basic law. Lee further stressed that three principles be held in the district administration review. National security must take top priority, district councillors must be patriots, and depoliticization of the district councils. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The Lok Ma Chau Loop Emergency Hospital opens tomorrow, providing MRIs and other diagnostic radiology services for public hospital patients. Priority will be given to hospital clusters in the new territories, East and West. Veronica Lin reports.
Originally built as a COVID medical facility, the Lok Ma Chau Loop Emergency Hospital was left idle for a year as the pandemic eased before being transformed into an emergency hospital. Starting on Wednesday, it will be put into service as part of a daytime radiology services pilot project and will open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The hospital authorities said that they already had 3 scanners by the end of last year, providing imaging tests on the brain, sinuses, and eye sockets. Additionally, there's an MRI machine to run tests on the spine and shoulders. In the first stages, it will primarily serve hospital clusters in new territories East and West with outpatients aged 12 to 80 who are mobile and non-urgent, as well as Tier 2 cases who are on the waiting list. Authorities estimate that the hospital can perform around 30 scans a day, benefiting thousands of patients every year. Authorities said as of now, around 20% of patients are interested in going to the emergency hospital for treatment, and all suitable patients will be added to the waiting list. As for plans to expand its services, authorities said the scheme is only in its initial phase of implementation and development.
It's a pilot scheme, so we are carefully planning ahead. We have no definite roadmap yet, but we will actively look into possibilities.
Starting in July, authorities said that they will attempt to offer additional services as well as expand to other hospital clusters. Since the hospital is located in a restricted area, patients will have to take a free shuttle bus to seek treatment. Each day, there will be 8 rounds of shuttle service going to and from the Shengshui MTR station. Veronica Lin, TVB News.
As part of the Happy Hong Kong campaign, residents will be able to watch a movie for just $30 at any cinema in the city this Saturday. The discount applies to 3D and 4D films as well. The Hong Kong Theatres Association said the discounted tickets will be available at 11 a.m. this Thursday, and those queuing at the cinema are limited to 4 tickets per person. The association expects the offer will attract around 200,000 people to the theaters. The government said the Happy Hong Kong campaign will continue to hold more events in the coming months. Sources said the Executive Council has passed a bill that doubles the littering fine to $3,000, while fines for shopfront extensions have increased to $6,000. The fine for littering in public spaces, country parks, and in the sea has remained at $1,500 since June 2003. In a bid to improve the city's hygiene, the government established a coordination task force last year that suggested imposing stricter penalties to deter public littering. Overseas, U.S. President Joe Biden today formally announced he is running for re-election next year, asking voters to give him more time to finish the job. The announcement comes 4 years to the day since he launched his run for the White House that saw him defeat Donald Trump in 2020.
When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election, because I know America.
Biden would be 86 at the end of his second term, but he is betting his first-term legislative achievements and 50-plus years of experience will count with voters. Biden faces a smooth path to winning his party's nomination, but a hard-fought struggle to retain the presidency in a divided nation. French President Emmanuel Macron has criticized comments made by the Chinese ambassador to France after he said Crimea was historically part of Russia, and added these ex-USSR countries don't have actual status in international law. Beijing said China respects the status of former Soviet republics as sovereign countries. Tracy Furness has more.
The governments of former Soviet republics of Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania were among those who rejected Ambassador Liu Xiaoye's comments to a French television station Friday in respect to the status of former Soviet member states as sovereign nations. And French President Emmanuel Macron made his opinion known while attending a summit in Ostend, Belgium, Monday. I think it's not a diplomat's place to use that sort of language, so I stand in full solidarity with those countries who have been attacked through the interpretation of their history and their borders. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said China respects all countries' sovereignties, independence and territorial integrity. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union, China was one of the first countries to establish diplomatic ties with the countries concerned. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said Liu's remarks were unacceptable.
It was also important, and I want to signal that Beijing has distanced itself from the unacceptable remark of its ambassador to Paris. I issued a tweet yesterday saying that I hope that this statements or remarks by the ambassador was not or were not the official position of China, and now we have a concrete answer that it's not. So it's a good news.
In a letter, a group of around 80 members of the European Parliament called on France to declare Liu a persona non grata. The letter argued that the statement violated international law and should be considered as a threat to the security of France's European partner nations. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Countries are rushing to evacuate citizens from Sudan. Former UN diplomat urges the U.S. and China to settle their differences. Dr. Dennis Lam believes more Hong Kong doctors will work in the Greater Bay Area in the future. Welcome back. Continued fighting in Sudan has left governments across the world scrambling to get their diplomats and citizens out of the country. UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly said an operation to evacuate British citizens would begin today after Sudanese factions agreed to a 72-hour ceasefire starting Tuesday. At least 2,000 UK citizens still in Sudan have registered with the British Embassy. Matthew Bray reports.
Plumes of black smoke billow across Khartoum as battles between the paramilitary rapid support forces and the army continue, despite an apparent three-day ceasefire now being in force. What it means in reality is that the foreign community as well as Sudanese are fleeing the chaotic state en masse wherever they can make it to an extraction point. The United States helped broker the ceasefire.
We've also continued to engage directly with General Burhan and General Hamedi to press them to extend and expand the Eid ceasefire to a sustainable cessation of hostilities.
Ceasefire in name, but people are getting out anyway. These are South Koreans along with some Japanese leaving from Port Sudan and later arriving in Jeddah aboard a C-130 military cargo plane. Sudan's sudden descent into conflict has sparked rapid moves to evacuate foreign nationals. Saudi Arabia has been quick to assist. This is a boatload of people of various nationalities arriving at King Faisal port in Jeddah on board a Saudi naval vessel. And these are Italian citizens and personnel arriving in Rome after 2 Italian Air Force planes evacuated people from Djibouti.
Right now it's still dangerous. We are hearing from colleagues it's less intense, but for the past 8 days it was continuously bombing and firing and shooting, and there were very few moments of silence, and they never respected the truce.
Sudanese and Egyptians have also been fleeing the fighting at the Arkeen land crossing into Egypt. Ramshackle trucks and coaches line up to get onto Egyptian desert. Its assistant administrative attaché was killed by RSF gunfire in Khartoum when trying to organise evacuations of Egyptians. Matthew Bray, TVB News.
South Korean leader Yoon Suk-yeol is visiting the United States this week. The White House said U.S. President Joe Biden and his South Korean counterpart will announce deals related to climate and cybersecurity cooperation. This as former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton said that the United States should redeploy tactical nuclear weapons in South Korea to send a clear message to North Korea and alleviate growing calls in the South for developing its own bombs. Meanwhile, President Yoon and Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos met at the White House, with the streaming giant announcing it plans to invest $2.5 billion in South Korea over the next 4 years to produce Korean TV series and movies. India will officially become the most populous nation on Earth at the end of April. The United Nations has projected India will overtake China as the country with the most people. David Garrett explains.
China is the most populated country on Earth. It's a fact. It's been a fact since 1950, when the UN first started estimating populations. But facts can change.
Based on the latest United Nations estimates and projections of global population, which were launched last year in July, India is projected to overtake China as the world's most populous country during the current month, April of 2023.
1.425 billion Indians overtaking China at about 1.4 billion and just a few more.
The size of the Chinese population could drop below 1 billion before the end of the century. In India, by contrast, the population is expected to continue growing for several decades.
Why is it happening? Well, one reason is India having more of these.
When we say that the population is exploding, we have to understand that the population is increasing because people are living longer. So in 1950, people average age of expectancy of life was around 50, but now it is around 72, which may go up to 77.
Indian women are giving birth to an average of 2 babies each. China is at about 1.2 per couple. Hence, India moves into first place in the population league table. But 1.4 billion is a lot of mouths to feed.
There is not adequate food for everyone in this country. And since the land area of our country is also very small, there are problems with the housing of these people.
Need to put a check on it, otherwise all the progress which the country is making vis-a-vis in technology, industry, everywhere will go haywire, and unemployment, poverty will remain as it is, irrespective of the progress we are making.
Like how we used to live very, very interdependent in communities, if we can find that we can go back to living like that, then that can become our strength.
While China's economy is strong, there is widespread poverty in India, although living standards are improving.
Population growth everywhere has implications for the world. That's certainly been true in China, where you've had substantial population growth despite the major effort to reduce the birth rate.
David Garrett, TVB News.
A visiting Singaporean scholar and former diplomat told TVB News the rivalry between China and the U.S. could hurt not just themselves, but also the rest of the world. Jackie Lin spoke with the geopolitics specialist to find out how the two nations could recalibrate their relationship.
When a new power emerges, especially a new power of the size and scale of China, the world has got to adjust.
Former Singaporean diplomat Kishore Mahbubani, who served as Singapore's permanent representative to the United Nations for 10 years, said the reluctance of the US and even Europe to make space for China in its ascent on the global arena is not healthy. They include Beijing's voting representations in the International Monetary Fund. Mahbubani added it would be a mistake for both China and the US to underestimate the other side.
No other society has accumulated as much wealth and power as the United States has. So it's a formidable society. But at the same time, China also represents the world's oldest continuous civilization. Actually, in some respects, China's economy may be more open to the rest of the world because China is willing to sign free trade agreements with any country in the world. The United States can't do so.
But he's more hopeful that positive changes can happen during face-to-face meetings among world leaders and officials.
I was a diplomat for 33 years. And the best way to practice diplomacy is to say as little about it publicly and to engage in intense private and confidential conversation.
Professor Mahbubani told us, given how fraught the Sino-US relationship is at the moment, it's inevitable the world is wondering which side would ultimately outcompete each other. But he said both China and the US should recalibrate and repivot the relationship away from such rivalry, not just because they have their own unique cultural, social, and economic strengths, but also for the greater good of the rest of the world.
Minus the population of China, minus the population of US, you still have 6 billion people in the world. What are these 6 billion people saying to deal with more pressing global challenges, whether it's climate change, the global financial crisis, the zero-sum game of competition? It's not just going to hurt the United States and China, it's going to hurt the rest of the world too.
Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Former head of ophthalmology at the Chinese University, Dr. Dennis Lam, said more doctors from Hong Kong could practice in the Greater Bay Area in the future as a result of changes in policy. Lam, a LegCo member, also said on TVB's Straight Talk program that Hong Kong could do much better in medical tourism. Veronica Lin reports.
Recently, under the Greater Bay Area Healthcare Talent Exchange programs, some doctors and nurses from Guangdong have come to Hong Kong to work in public hospitals. More are expected to follow. LegCo member Dr. Dennis Lam, who is also head of a medical group with hospital centers on the mainland, said on TVB's Straight Talk program that more doctors from Hong Kong could work in the Greater Bay Area in the future.
The policy is very important. The government has given this special exemption so that drugs or devices that have been used in Hong Kong can get exemptions to be used in the Greater Bay Area. So they have identified 19 hospitals in China, in the Greater Bay Area or in the Guangdong province, so that the drug usage is the same. So overnight, the standard of drug use is the same between Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area cities. I can sort of envisage that in future there may be quite a number of Hong Kong doctors serving in the Greater Bay Area. Home base is still Hong Kong.
To plug the brain drain, Lam said the government is applying for funding to improve teaching facilities and produce more medical school graduates, not only for Hong Kong, but also potentially for the Greater Bay Area and the rest of Asia. Once a major hub for referrals from around the world, Lam said the SAR is now lagging behind in the field of medical tourism compared to Singapore and Thailand.
Medical tourism is very important for the whole society because you bring in a lot of, new revenues from tourism or from the medical work, and also is a great contribution to the growth of the medical community. So I think the government, as well as the medical community, has to join hands to make it happen.
Lam believes Hong Kong is in a good position to take the lead in medical tourism, as the city could provide top-notch services. But he said authorities should help patients in obtaining visas and in other areas. Veronica Lin, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.